For Vivian's mother's mounting medical bills, I found myself escorting other women to dinners and engaging in forced conversations. But polite dinners and stilted small talk weren't enough. The exorbitant costs of treatment loomed, and to earn more, I had to sell more, my body, my dignity. Vivian would hold me close, her voice thick with gratitude, whispering how much she loved me, how much she appreciated my sacrifice. Her words were a balm to my wounded spirit, a fragile comfort until the day I walked past a hotel room and saw her emerging, not alone, but with her childhood sweetheart, Jason. Disillusionment crashed over me, cold and heavy. I went home, a hollow ache in my chest, and gathered every trace of Vivian from my life. Photographs, gifts, even the toothbrush in the holder we shared. Each item, tossed into the trash, was a painful severing, a tearing away of a dream. When she called, I answered, my voice flat, devoid of inflection. "It's over, Vivian," I stated simply, the words hanging heavy in the air. Her voice, once soft and melodic, hardened with a chilling disdain. "Ethan, be realistic. You're so sensitive, so brooding, and you've been with so many women. You're tainted, Ethan. Who else would ever want you? You'll come crawling back?" Her laughter, sharp and brittle, echoed in my ears as I hung up. Her words, like poison darts, were meant to wound, to control, to ensure I wouldn't truly leave. She was so certain of my dependence, my desperation for love. 3 months crawled by, each day a slow, agonizing march. Then, one day, a chance encounter, or perhaps fate, brought Vivian back into my orbit. I was checking out of a hotel, a brief stay for a work trip, when I saw her. She was in a housekeeping uniform, pushing a cleaning cart down the hallway. Her eyes, rimmed with red, locked onto mine. A flicker of shock, then a wave of something akin to desperation washed over her face. She blocked my path, her voice a trembling whisper, stripped of its earlier arrogance. "Ethan," she pleaded, her voice raw with unshed tears, I won't let you do that anymore. Please, come back to me. Let's just be us again." The vulnerability in her voice was a stark contrast to the venomous words she'd spat at me months before. But the scars her words had left were deep, and the trust, once shattered, was not easily pieced back together. "Hey there, sweet thing, can I steal a kiss?" Emerging from the restaurant, Brenda released my arm, her gaze fixed on me, a mixture of expectancy and a subtle, almost imperceptible, condescension in her eyes. Brenda was 40, at least, her designer clothes doing little to disguise a figure softened by time and indulgence. Lines, etched by years of sun and perhaps a touch too much wine, webbed across her forehead. I lowered my gaze, a knot of unease tightening in my stomach. "Miss Brenda," I began, my voice carefully neutral, "I don't think that's appropriate. We agreed to dinner and conversation, light physical contact, nothing more." Brenda chuckled, a sound that rumbled in her chest, and the flesh of her face rippled with amusement. From her expensive handbag, she produced a credit card, flicking it dismissively towards my face. The plastic card grazed my cheek, fluttering down to land with a soft thud on the pavement. "This card has 20,000 on it. Added to the 30,000 I gave your girlfriend earlier, that's 50,000 in total," Brenda declared, tossing her expensively highlighted hair and lifting her chin. "Is that appropriate enough now, darling?" I stared at the card lying at my feet, a stark symbol of the transaction, of what I had become. Seconds stretched into an eternity. Finally, with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of my crumbling pride, I leaned in, my lips meeting hers in a fleeting, lifeless kiss. The world seemed to blur around me. I registered the stares of passers-by, the murmured whispers that felt like 1,000 tiny daggers piercing my skin, shredding what little remained of my self-respect. "Smart, young, and handsome, little brother," Brenda purred, a predatory glint in her eyes. "Your flavor is definitely better than those hired models at the club. If I need company again, I know who to call." She winked, a grotesque parody of flirtation, and turned, her expensive heels clicking sharply on the sidewalk as she disappeared into the night. I stood frozen, the neon signs of the city blurring into indistinct streaks of color. It felt like an eternity before the numbness began to recede, replaced by a burning shame that consumed me. Bending down, I reached for the card, my fingers brushing against something soft and clean. I looked up. Standing before me were a pair of pristine white sneakers. Vivian. My breath hitched in my throat. I straightened up, forcing a smile, a hollow imitation of happiness. Vivian, I repeated, my voice a strained whisper. Vivian, her dark hair pulled back in a high ponytail, wore a simple white dress, as fresh and innocent as the day we first met. Ethan, she breathed, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. This is humiliating for you. She slipped her arm through mine, her touch sending a confusing mix of warmth and guilt through me. Her voice trembled, thick with emotion. Ethan, you could have had such a bright future. If it weren't for me. Ethan, I'm so sorry. But I still want to say thank you. Thank you for doing this, for everything. I gently stroked her hair, tucking a stray strand behind her ear. Don't say sorry, Vivian. And no thank yous either. Just love me. That's all I need. I pressed the credit card into her hand, my voice softening. Here, this is from Miss Brenda. Take it. Vivian slipped the card into her bag, then threw her arms around me, burying her face in my chest, silent tears dampening my shirt. Ethan, I do love you. Of course I love you, she whispered, her voice muffled against my chest. But my mother's treatment, it's still not enough. Her words hung in the air, a chilling reminder of the sacrifices I was making, of the chasm that was growing between us. A year. It had been a year of this. Surely, the money I'd earned, the pieces of myself I'd sold, should have been enough by now. Has anyone else asked for me lately? I asked, forcing a light tone, stroking her hair. I can earn more. Vivian pulled back slightly, her eyes darting away, a flicker of something unreadable in their depths. Yes, she said softly, her voice hesitant, but she wants more this time. A heavy silence descended. Seconds ticked by, each one amplifying the unease within me. She wants to sleep with you, Vivian finally whispered, the words barely audible. And you agreed? The question hung in the air, raw and vulnerable. A cold dread began to spread through my veins. Vivian clutched at the fabric of my shirt, her lower lip trembling. She nodded, her gaze fixed on the ground. A maelstrom of emotions churned within me, disbelief, hurt, a bitter sense of betrayal. I knew this was for her mother, but the casual acceptance, the willingness to offer me up. It felt like a violation, a severing of something precious. Ethan, are you angry? Vivian's voice was small, tentative, as if sensing the shift in the atmosphere. She peered up at me, her eyes searching mine, as if trying to gauge my reaction. I don't want you to go. But Mom needs it. It's thousands every day. The doctors say this last treatment cycle, and she'll be okay. Ethan, please, just a little longer. For me, for Mom. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat tight and painful. I forced a smile, a brittle, humorless curve of my lips. It's okay, Vivian. I'll go. Don't worry. Vivian's face brightened instantly, relief flooding her features. She reached into her bag, pulling out a small, rectangular card. Here, she said, pressing it into my hand. Hotel key card. She wants to meet at 9 tonight. Don't be late. A strange unease settled in my stomach, a prickling sensation that felt inexplicably wrong. Vivian's eagerness, her almost excited tone, felt discordant, out of sync with the gravity of the situation. Clutching the key card, a cold weight in my palm, I simply nodded. Okay. A smudge of dark dirt marred Vivian's cheek, a small imperfection on her otherwise flawless facade. I instinctively leaned down, my hand rising to gently brush it away. But Vivian flinched, turning her head abruptly, a blush rising on her cheeks. Let's just go back to campus, okay? She said, her voice tight, avoiding my gaze. A wave of confusion washed over me. My hand hovered in the air, then dropped limply to my side. Vivian must have thought I was going to kiss her. I managed a weak smile, a silent acknowledgement of the distance that had suddenly widened between us. 9 o'clock. Hotel room. Alone. Miss Scarlett, I'm in the room. I typed into the messaging app, sending the message to the new contact Vivian had given me. 15 minutes until 9. No reply. Perhaps she hadn't seen it yet. The dim lighting in the room cast long shadows, creating an atmosphere of manufactured intimacy. The king-sized bed dominated the space, its plush surface subtly vibrating with the city's pulse. I sat on the edge, the unfamiliar surroundings amplifying my sense of disorientation. A sigh escaped my lips. I stood up, restlessly pacing the room. I'd sent Vivian several messages throughout the evening, mundane updates about my day, attempts to bridge the growing silence between us. Her last reply, hours ago at 7, was a curt, headed to the library, followed by nothing. Bored and anxious, I clicked on Scarlett's profile picture in the chat. Her profile was surprisingly bare, a stark contrast to the weight of the transaction she was about to engage in. A few public posts, all recent, all with simple, two-word captions: happy, joyful, blissful. I frowned. Brenda and the others were older, women seeking something beyond just companionship. Scarlett, though, seemed young. Too young. Could she be a student? A nervous knot formed in my stomach. If she was from campus, the rumors, the whispers that had briefly circulated about a scholarship boy selling himself, rumors that had inexplicably vanished as quickly as they'd appeared, might resurface. This time, with a chilling authenticity. Because this time, it wasn't a rumor. It was real. A notification pinged on my phone. I'm here. Open the door. Scarlett's message flashed on the screen. A knock echoed from the hallway moments later. Taking a deep breath, I walked to the door and opened it. A face, unfamiliar yet breathtakingly vibrant, filled the doorway. "Hi," she said, a dazzling smile lighting up her features. "I'm Scarlett." She extended a hand, a gesture of unexpected normalcy. I took her hand, her fingers cool and surprisingly firm against mine. "Hello, Scarlett. I'm Ethan." The purple-tinged lighting of the hotel room seemed to pulse around us, thick with unspoken expectations. Scarlett stepped inside. Then, in a move that startled me, she tightened her grip on my hand, pulling me closer. My heart lurched. Vivian had been my first love, but our relationship had always been respectful, restrained. This was uncharted territory. My palms grew clammy, my breath shallow. This was it. This was really happening. "Let's go," Scarlett said, her voice bright, almost cheerful. She tugged on my hand, leading me towards the door. Confusion clouded my mind. "Go? Where are we going?" I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. Scarlett glanced back, a playful smirk curving her lips. "What? Did you think you were going to? She gestured towards the bed with a playful roll of her eyes. I shook my head, a wave of mortification washing over me. No, I didn't." "But," Vivian said, "she made it sound like you wanted me to stay the night." Scarlett winked, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "I did say overnight, but overnight doesn't necessarily mean in bed. And as for this hotel room," she paused, her smile widening. "This little romantic setup? That was all your girlfriend's doing?" A wave of humiliation crashed over me, hot and stinging. Confusion warred with a dawning sense of manipulation. "Vivian booked this room?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Scarlett nodded, her expression shifting, a hint of something akin to pity flickering in her eyes. "Yep. She told me she wanted me to have a better experience. Apparently, this place is much nicer than your usual spots." In Scarlett's car, the soft scent of lavender filled the air, a calming balm against the churning unease in my stomach. I was prone to motion sickness, but the gentle fragrance, coupled with Scarlett's smooth driving, seemed to keep it at bay. "Want a candy?" Scarlett offered, holding out a small box. I took one, unwrapping the foil to reveal a bright orange drop. Orange, my favorite. A small, unexpected comfort. Where are we going? I asked, breaking the silence that had settled between us. Scarlett smiled, tapping her fingers lightly on the steering wheel. Didn't I say? You'll see. Don't worry, big guy. Not planning on selling you off to the highest bidder, promise? I looked down, unable to meet her gaze, and retreated into silence. After a moment, Scarlett spoke again, her voice softer this time. You're still thinking about what I said at the hotel, aren't you? About Vivian and the room? She sighed, a soft puff of air. Look, I'm not trying to stir up trouble between you and your girlfriend, but maybe I gave her a little too much money up front. She seemed really keen on long-term collaboration, she called it. And this hotel room? Definitely her suggestion, not mine. I glanced at my phone, still no messages from Vivian since, headed to the library. The image of Vivian, tearful and pleading, flashed in my mind, followed by the memory of her turning away from my touch earlier that evening. Shaking my head slowly, I said, I don't believe Vivian would do that. Scarlett's expression remained neutral, a slight smile playing on her lips. We're almost there. An hour later, Scarlett's car pulled to a stop at the summit of a mountain. The air was crisp and clean, scented with pine and damp earth. The city lights twinkled far below, a distant, glittering tapestry. Above, the stars blazed in a velvet sky, impossibly bright, impossibly close. A gentle breeze whispered through the trees, carrying the scent of freedom and vastness. It was a view I'd longed for, a sanctuary I hadn't known I craved. Scarlett and I stayed there for hours, until the first hint of dawn painted the eastern sky. In the quiet stillness of the mountaintop, something shifted within me. A sense of peace, a quiet understanding, began to settle in the cracks of my broken heart. In the fragmented memories of my childhood, I remembered my father, an avid hiker. Before illness stole his strength, he'd often take my mother and me on mountain hikes, eager to share the beauty of the summit. But the year my parents vanished, the year I ended up in the orphanage, the mountains became a distant, inaccessible dream. In college, during freshman orientation, I'd mentioned to Vivian how much I wanted to hike, to see the view from a mountaintop again. But before I could finish the sentence, her eyes had lit up, focusing on someone across the crowded courtyard. Her childhood friend, Jason. She'd laughed, waved, and rushed off to greet him, leaving my half-formed sentence hanging in the air. The hike, like so many other unspoken desires, was forgotten. Happy? Scarlett's voice, soft and gentle, broke through my reverie. I nodded, surprised by the sincerity of the emotion. Yes, thank you. A hesitant question escaped my lips. Scarlett, you spent all this money just to bring me hiking? Is it worth it? Scarlett laughed, a light, airy sound that echoed in the stillness of the mountain air. 50,000 to buy your happiness? Best investment I've made all week. A warmth spread through my chest, a fragile flicker of hope in the darkness. Why? I asked, the question tumbling out before I could stop myself. Why make me happy? Why spend so much? A shrug, a casual wave of her hand. My money, my rules. And because you looked like you needed a little happiness. Don't overthink it. Scarlett drove us to a luxurious hotel near campus, booking 2 rooms. She handed me a key card. Campus dorms are probably locked up by now, and your girlfriend's hotel is miles away. Let's just crash here. I reached for my wallet, intending to offer to pay for my room. Scarlett waved me off. Nope, my treat. Consider it part of the package. If you really want to repay me, she added, a playful glint returning to her eyes, just try to be a little happier tomorrow. Deal? Exhausted but strangely invigorated, I collapsed onto the plush hotel bed. As I drifted towards sleep, a notification pinged on my phone. A message from Vivian, time-stamped 1 a.m. Going to bed now. Night. Library, until 1 in the morning? Something felt off, but exhaustion pulled me under, and questions faded into the darkness. The next morning, I woke with a sense of uneasy anticipation. Opening my hotel room door, I was met with a scene that shattered the last vestiges of my carefully constructed denial. Vivian and Jason emerged from the room directly across the hall, Vivian's laughter echoing softly in the quiet corridor. "Vivian, are you sure your boyfriend won't be mad about you staying out all night with me? He seems like a good guy, Ethan. Handsome, smart, and clearly head over heels for you. Don't lose him over me, okay?" Jason's voice, laced with mock concern, drifted across the hallway. I froze, hidden in the shadows of my doorway, watching, listening. Vivian's arm was linked through Jason's, her exposed skin marked with a constellation of faint red marks. "Hickeys." "Oh, please," Vivian scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Ethan? He's not in your league, Jason. He's so sensitive, so needy. Every little thing is a drama. Honestly, if I hadn't moved away and lost touch with you back in high school, I never would have settled for him." Her gaze softened as she turned to Jason, her voice dropping to a syrupy sweetness. "You're so much better, so much more than him." Jason chuckled, a low, self-satisfied sound. "Yeah, but he's got one thing I don't. He's bringing in the cash, isn't he? I heard he's making you a fortune every month." "Oh, Ethan, please." Vivian leaned closer to Jason, her voice dripping with disdain. "He's not some rich kid, despite what I told everyone. He's just pathetic. He sells himself to rich women to get money for my mom's treatment. He's demeaning himself, Jason. He's nothing compared to you." I stood there, paralyzed, as Vivian's words, cruel and dismissive, sliced through me like shards of ice. The casual cruelty, the utter lack of empathy. It was a betrayal far deeper than I could have imagined. Jason snorted. "So that's the scholarship boy selling himself rumor I heard floating around campus a while back. Guess it wasn't just a rumor after all." Vivian tossed her head, a smug smile playing on her lips. "Oh, that was me. I started that rumor on the school forum. Figured if enough people heard about it, some lonely rich housewives might get curious, sniff around, and come looking for Ethan. More clients, more money, right? Too bad the post and all the comments got mysteriously deleted. That really messed up my plan for a while." Her words trailed off as her eyes finally landed on me. The smile vanished, replaced by a flicker of something. Panic? Recognition? We stared at each other, the comfortable intimacy of the past replaced by a chasm of betrayal and disgust. This wasn't the Vivian I thought I knew. This was a stranger, cold and calculating, using me, manipulating me, and now, openly mocking me. "Vivian," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. Is any of that true? What you just said?" Vivian froze, her carefully constructed composure crumbling. A forced, brittle smile stretched across her face. "Ethan, it's a misunderstanding. Let me explain." "Explain?" The word tasted like ash in my mouth. "Explain how you think I'm pathetic? Explain those rumors you started? Explain why you're coming out of a hotel room with another man, looking like you spent the night together?" Jason suddenly leaned heavily against Vivian, feigning weakness. "Vivian, I'm feeling a little lightheaded. Low blood sugar, maybe? Think I might faint." Vivian's attention snapped back to Jason, her face contorting with concern. "Ethan, look, it's not what it looks like. But I don't have time for this. Now, Jason needs to eat. You're supposed to be with Scarlett anyway, right? She's paying you a fortune. Don't keep her waiting. We can talk later." As they turned to leave, Jason's voice, still laced with theatrical weakness, drifted back to me. "Vivian, maybe you should explain things to your boyfriend first?" Vivian's reply, though whispered, carried with chilling clarity across the quiet hallway. "Don't worry about him. He's got no family, grew up in an orphanage. He's desperate for love. He's not going anywhere. He'll forgive me. He always does." I watched them walk away, the casual dismissal in her voice a final, devastating blow. She was wrong. Painfully, irrevocably wrong. I might be sensitive. I might crave love. But I wouldn't tolerate betrayal. I wouldn't be a fool. "Vivian," I called out, my voice ringing with a newfound resolve. "No explanation needed. We're done. It's over." I turned and walked away, leaving Vivian and Jason standing in the hallway, the echo of my words hanging heavy in the air. This time, I wouldn't look back. This time, I was finally free. Back in the dorm room, I furiously gathered all the things Vivian had ever given me, packing them into boxes and dumping them outside in the hallway. Then I collapsed onto my bed, shutting my eyes, but my mind was a relentless replay of Vivian's words, promises, and lies. You don't have any family. Can I be your family then? We'll study together, grow together, get into the same university. Ethan, once everything settles down, I want us to work in the same city, get married. I had no idea when sleep finally claimed me, but when I woke, it was dark outside, and my pillow was soaked with tears. Vivian had sent a barrage of messages and made several calls, but my phone was on silent. I hadn't heard a single one. Where are you? Let's grab dinner together. I didn't mean to say you were worthless. I just said it to comfort Jason. He was feeling insecure. As for the rumors, I just wanted more people to contact us, so we could earn more money for Mom's treatment. Please don't misunderstand. And don't overthink things. Jason got drunk last night, and I picked him up from the bar. The dorms were locked, so I had to get a hotel room. He mistook me for his ex for a moment and kissed me. He couldn't help himself, but nothing else happened. Sometimes, I truly felt like Vivian took me for a complete fool. I blocked her number and WeChat account, deleting her from my life with a decisive swipe. Scarlett also messaged, asking how I was doing and if I wanted to hang out that evening. My spirits were low, but the thought of the money she had given me weighed on my conscience. Feeling obligated, I asked her where she was. Following the location Scarlett sent, I arrived at a large shopping mall. Feeling any better? Scarlett appeared behind me, gently patting my shoulder. You know about this morning? I asked, my voice even. It's okay. I'm fine. With voices that loud? Hard not to overhear. Retail therapy is the best cure for a bad mood. Let's go buy something. Scarlett grabbed my hand, pulling me inside before I could protest. Just then, a mocking, high-pitched voice cut through the air from behind us. Well, if it isn't my little boy toy. Long time no see. And you're already escorting another woman? I turned to face Brenda. Miss Brenda, good evening, I murmured, trying to steer Scarlett away, but Brenda blocked our path. Miss Brenda? That's not what you were calling me the other day. With a predatory gleam in her eye, Brenda reached for my hand, but Scarlett stepped in front of me, a protective barrier. Ethan is my boyfriend now. You have no right to touch him. Scarlett's voice was icy, her gaze unwavering, holding Brenda's with a surprising force despite the age difference. Oh, so she's not just your client. She's the new girlfriend. Little girl, do you even know what he is? I've paid him thousands to keep me company. He's not worth your time. I know exactly what he is, and I don't need your opinion. And about the money you spent, Scarlett retorted, her voice sharp, here's 30,000. Consider it a refund. Stay away from Ethan. Scarlett thrust a credit card into Brenda's face, then, grabbing my hand again, pulled me into the mall, leaving Brenda sputtering in her wake. Scarlett, thank you, I said, the words feeling inadequate. In the past, when I'd told Vivian about encounters like this, she'd just tell me to put up with it, to endure it for the money. She'd say, after all the money we were getting, a little humiliation was nothing. I'd longed for Vivian to stand by me, not necessarily to defend me, but just to offer a word of comfort. But she never did. Ever since Jason had come back into Vivian's life in college, she changed. She wasn't the girl who had always looked at me with such tenderness in high school anymore. Scarlett smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached her eyes. No need for thanks. Like I said, if you want to repay me, just try to be happy. That's all I ask. It was like a ray of sunshine breaking through the clouds in my heart. I nodded, managing a small, genuine smile of my own. Okay. But my newfound lightness was short-lived. Fate, it seemed, wasn't quite done with Vivian and me. Not long after, we ran into her and Jason again. Jason, look at anything you like. I'll buy it for you. Hearing that familiar voice, I turned around, and sure enough, there they were, Vivian and Jason, just walking into the store. Vivian, no, I can't. Not while your mom is still sick. I can't spend your money, Jason said, his eyes wide with feigned concern, though his gaze lingered longingly on the designer clothes around him. I started to turn away, wanting to avoid any further confrontation. Don't worry, Mom's been fine for 6 months now. She's completely recovered. Just needs a checkup every 3 months, Vivian said casually. 6 months? Recovered? Vivian's words stopped me in my tracks. Just yesterday, she claimed her mother was still undergoing treatment, needing one last expensive cycle, that the money wasn't enough. Jason looked surprised too. But last time I asked about your mom, you said she was still in the hospital. Vivian gave a sly smile. I had to keep it a secret from everyone. I told you that because I wanted Ethan to keep getting me money. You've been wanting clothes and shoes from this brand forever, haven't you? Pick anything you want. It's all yours. Jason grinned, scooping Vivian up in his arms and spinning her around. Once I get Ethan back on my side, he can keep earning money for us. Then I can buy you and Mom everything we want, Vivian giggled, clinging to Jason's neck. I stood in the shadows of the store, my fingernails digging into my palms. For money, Vivian had subjected me to so much humiliation, and now she was planning to spend that money on another man, even scheming to keep me in her web of deceit so I could continue to fund their lifestyle. I couldn't take it anymore. Vivian, so you've been using me all along. Stepping out of the shadows, I met her gaze directly. Vivian's face flashed with a moment of panic, but quickly, her composure returned. Ethan, don't be so dramatic. It's not using you. Don't make it sound so ugly. Back in high school, you were so sensitive, so withdrawn, like a mouse hiding in the shadows. Nobody liked you. If I hadn't reached out to you, become your friend, would you be where you are today? Yes, I kept things from you, but I've been good to you, haven't I? Is it so wrong for you to earn a little money for me? I was stunned by the brazenness of her words, the way she twisted the narrative, but I was beyond arguing with her. Vivian, I don't want anything to do with you anymore. But what's mine, I want back. Since your mother's been better for 6 months, the money I earned in the last half year, you need to give it all back to me. Vivian's face darkened, her voice turning cold. Ethan, are you being ridiculous? Are you really risking losing me over this? Are you sure you want to break up with me? I laughed, a short, humorless sound. It was almost comical, her arrogance, her belief that I was still desperate for her. Vivian, we are already broken up. Do you really think I'd still want a manipulative liar like you? You're garbage, Vivian. Pure trash. Vivian's face flushed crimson with rage. In all our time together, I treated her with such care, such deference, never uttering a harsh word. She raised her hand, ready to strike me. But in an instant, her wrist was seized in a firm grip, and she was shoved backwards, stumbling and falling to the floor. Who do you think you are, laying hands on my man? Scarlet, in her stiletto heels, stood over Vivian, a fierce goddess descending from above, a protective shield in front of me. Vivian cried out in pain as she hit the ground. Jason, his face flushed, looked like he wanted to defend her, but when his eyes met Scarlet's, his bravado evaporated. You can't just attack people like this. Jason stammered weakly, his voice lacking any conviction. Scarlet scoffed. She wouldn't be on the floor if she hadn't tried to attack my man, would she? Jason, you still owe me money from those stock investments, don't you? When are you planning to pay me back? Jason's face paled instantly. Scarlet, Miss Scarlet, I don't have it right now. Could you give me a few more days? Scarlet's voice hardened. That's what you said last month. Do you take me for a fool? Pay me back right now, or I'll go straight to the university and make sure you don't get to finish your degree. Jason looked terrified, turning to Vivian, his voice pleading. Vivian, help me? Vivian patted Jason's hand, then glared at Scarlet, her voice sharp. Scarlet, don't push your luck. Just because Ethan slept with you doesn't mean he's yours. He's still my boyfriend, so get that straight. And Jason's debt? I'll pay it. Just wipe that smug look off your face. Scarlet raised an eyebrow, a playful smile flickering across her lips. Oh, You'll pay? $10,000, please? Cash or card, Miss Vivian? Vivian's eyes widened. She hissed at Jason, Jason, how could you owe her so much? Scarlett chuckled, a sound laced with amusement. What's wrong, Miss Vivian? Can't afford it? Vivian's face contorted with fury. She gritted her teeth. Who can't afford it? I'll transfer it to you right now. Perfect, Scarlett said smoothly. And about that contract we signed. It clearly states the 10,000 companion fee is for Ethan, isn't it? Shouldn't you be paying him too? Vivian's eyes widened in realization, her face contorted with rage. So, this is what you were after. That's why you made me sign that contract. Fine. It's just money, right? I have plenty. I'll transfer him the money too, right now. I was overwhelmed by Scarlett's willingness to stand up for me. I stepped closer, murmuring softly, Scarlett, thank you, but I can handle this myself. You don't need to get involved. Scarlett slipped her arm through mine, her voice gentle. It's no trouble at all. The trouble is you, Ethan. Remember what I said? Don't thank me. Just be happy. That's all the repayment I need. My gaze fell to Scarlett's arm linked with mine. After a moment of silence, I said quietly, I am happy. Since yesterday, since I met you, I've been truly happy. Scarlett paused, then a radiant smile bloomed on her face, bright and warm as a summer sunflower, full of joy and light. Vivian watched us, her expression sour, a flash of jealousy in her eyes. Ethan, you're sensitive, boring, and you've slept with so many women, you're disgusting. Who else would ever want you after me? Don't think. Scarlett is really interested in you. It's just a novelty. She'll dump you as soon as she gets bored. I'm apologizing. Just stop being childish and come back to me. Vivian's tone was still arrogant, still condescending. Before I could respond, Scarlett squeezed my hand, turning to Vivian. You know what, Vivian? Not a single word you've said is something I want to hear. Scarlett turned to a nearby store clerk, waving them over. Call security from the first floor. Have these two removed. Vivian's face turned purple with fury. Just because you have a little money, you think you own this mall? You think you can order people around here? The store clerk bowed slightly to Scarlett. Yes, Mississippi. In the next moment, Vivian and Jason were being forcibly escorted out of the store, their protests fading into the background. I don't own the mall, Scarlett said, turning back to Vivian with a sweet smile. But my dad does. Then, she turned to me, her expression softening. Now that the unpleasantries are over, let's talk about us. Quite suddenly, Scarlett took me back to the mountaintop. The mountaintop that I'd always wanted to visit, but never had the chance, or rather, no one had ever wanted to accompany me. I'd now visited twice in 3 days. Ethan, be my boyfriend. A gentle evening breeze rustled through the trees as Scarlett's cheerful voice broke the silence. I was taken aback. Scarlett, we've only known each other for 3 days. Scarlett tilted her head, the moonlight bathing her face, illuminating her clear, bright eyes. You need money for living expenses and tuition. But working part-time takes up so much study time, you'll burn out. I wanted to just give you money directly, but I know your character. You wouldn't take it. So, I thought, why not have you be my boyfriend? I'll give you compensation. But it's still not equal, is it? Why should you give me money just for being your boyfriend? I asked, my voice quiet. Scarlett laughed softly. Of course, it's equal. Because I like you, and you don't like me yet. I'm not like Vivian, who just wants a fleeting novelty. I liked you from the first time I saw you at university. But you already had a girlfriend, so I didn't want to interfere. Then I discovered your girlfriend was spreading those awful rumors about you. I used some connections to get them taken down. I realized she wasn't good for you, so I decided to use money as a way to connect with you, hoping to get to know you better. So, that night you took me to the mountaintop. It was because you overheard my conversation with Vivian during orientation? I asked, a dawning realization washing over me. Scarlett just winked, not confirming or denying, but continued. I have a good personality, I'm pretty, and I have money. Most importantly, I like you. So, what do you think? Consider it. Maybe you'll even fall in love with me in the end. Looking into Scarlett's earnest eyes, my mind flashed back to her sparse social media profile. Orientation, opening ceremony, library study room. In each of those photos, in the crowded backgrounds, it seemed my figure was always there, somewhere in the frame. Was the caption happy because she'd spotted me in the crowd? "Scarlett, I'm not good enough for you," I whispered, the words heavy with self-doubt. It wasn't just about our different backgrounds. It was about everything. Even Vivian, who knew everything about my situation, thought I must have slept with those women. What would others think of Scarlett being with someone like me? Scarlett looked at me intently, and then, before I could react, she leaned in and gently kissed my cheek. "You are good enough. If I like you, then we're a perfect match. You're clean, Ethan. Because your motives are pure, your heart is kind. Vivian said you were boring, but I don't think so. I think you're just lost in your own world, waiting for someone to truly see you, to see the amazing and beautiful person inside. Ethan, I want to be that person." And just like that, Scarlett and I were together. But our relationship was more like friendship in the beginning. Dinners, conversations, shopping, attending classes together. Apart from that one kiss on the cheek, we hadn't kissed again, not even hugged. Scarlett said to take it slow. She wasn't buying a boyfriend for a transactional romance, but hoping we could genuinely develop something real. In the crisp autumn air, Scarlett would slip her hand into my pocket, quietly complaining, "So cold." In the supermarket, she'd fill the cart with everything orange-flavored, smiling, "This is Ethan's favorite." She'd take me hiking on different mountains, showing me the views from different peaks in different seasons. Unlike Vivian, Scarlett remembered everything I said. She was serious about building a relationship, eager to create small moments of intimacy and sweetness. She didn't see my sensitivity as a burden. She never pushed me to do things I didn't want to. She never thought I was tainted. It felt like I was truly seen, truly cherished, truly loved. 3 months into our relationship, my birthday arrived. Scarlett took me to a hotel, promising a surprise. She blindfolded me, her voice bubbling with excitement. 3, 2, 1, look. I opened my eyes to a room filled with balloons and streamers, soft projector lights casting mountainscapes on the white walls. On the table in front of me was an orange cake, decorated with a lopsided but clearly gendered cartoon figure. A small card on the cake read, "Happy 20th birthday, Ethan." "What's wrong? Don't you like it? Is something not right?" Scarlett asked, her voice tinged with concern, tilting her head to look at me, noticing the tears welling up in my eyes. "No, I love it. Every day since I met you, Scarlett. I've been so happy. This is the first birthday I've celebrated since I lost my parents." My voice broke, trembling with emotion. I saw understanding and tenderness fill Scarlett's eyes. She pulled me into a hug, gently kissing away my tears. "I'll celebrate every birthday with you from now on. I'll be with you forever and always." I kissed Scarlett, the moonlight soft, the lights flickering, feeling a profound sense of peace, a perfect tranquility filling the night. I never expected to see Vivian again, but fate, it seemed, had one more encounter in store, and ironically, it was at another hotel. "Can't you even clean properly? You spilled water all over my dress." Scarlett and I had just stepped out of our room when we heard a shrill, angry voice. A woman in expensive clothes, in her 30s, was ranting and raving. A sharp slap echoed through the hallway. The woman continued, "You dare glare at me? Do you even know who owns this hotel? One phone call, and you'll be out of a job." The cleaning lady, carrying a bucket and mop, kept apologizing. As she turned, I recognized her. It was Vivian. Vivian saw me too. Her eyes, rimmed with red, widened. She rushed towards me, her voice pleading, almost desperate. "Ethan, I won't let you do that anymore. Please, come back to me. Please. I can't live without you," she sobbed. I didn't know what had happened in the last 3 months to make Vivian become like this, but I wanted nothing to do with her anymore. I coldly brushed off her hand, which was clutching my arm. "Vivian, we're over. I'm going out with my girlfriend now. Please, don't block our way." Only then did Vivian notice Scarlett beside me. She stared, disbelief etched on her face. Girlfriend? Ethan, are you kidding me? You can't be serious. You too? It's impossible. Scarlett leaned in and kissed my cheek, smiling at Vivian. Why is it impossible? Vivian's face paled. She started to ramble, words tumbling out in a desperate torrent, but I tuned her out. If you have so much time to waste on me, I interrupted, why don't you go bother Jason? From the time I'd met Jason in freshman year, he'd cycled through girlfriends. That was probably why he hadn't been with Vivian back then. Only, to circle back to her now, he'd probably dated every girl he could, and when he ran out of options, he turned to his childhood sweetheart. For some reason, my words seemed to trigger something in Vivian. Her carefully constructed facade crumbled. She sank to the floor, bursting into hysterical sobs, ranting about Jason, then turning her anger on me, her words a jumbled mess of accusations and self-pity. Finally, security guards arrived and dragged her away, leaving a strained silence in the hallway. Scarlett took my arm, her voice quiet. You haven't been following her and Jason, have you? You wouldn't know. She spent a fortune on Jason, buying him designer clothes, luxury goods, and even letting him play the stock market with her money. But Jason is notorious. A heartbreaker and a terrible investor. He just dates girls to bleed them dry. A friend of mine was completely infatuated with him, borrowed $10,000 from me for him to invest, and then he dumped her. Same thing happened to Vivian. She ran out of money, and Jason dumped her. Then, I heard Vivian's mother had a relapse, needed another expensive treatment. She wanted Jason for money, and he slapped her a few times, wouldn't give her a cent. She reported him to the university. Jason got expelled, but the money is gone. I was shocked by how much had transpired in such a short time. But holding Scarlett's hand tightly, I felt a sense of detachment. Their drama was no longer my concern. The rest of our university years flew by. Scarlett and I both maintained good grades and were accepted into the same graduate program. After graduation, I landed a well-paying job, and Scarlett and I got married. I'd always thought Scarlett's interest in me was love at first sight, but a year into our marriage, one day, I randomly picked up a book from the bookshelf, and a photograph slipped out. The book was one Scarlett had brought from her parents' house. The photo was of a boy and girl, around 11 or 12 years old, holding hands, smiling sweetly at the camera. In the background, I recognized it instantly. It was a place etched into my memory, a place I'd spent so many years. The orphanage. Are you Cassie? I asked, holding the photo out to Scarlett as she came home from work. Cassie. It was a name I hadn't spoken in years. She was my only friend in the orphanage. We were close. She'd said she liked the quiet strength she found in me. She liked following behind me. I told her I wanted to go to the mountaintop again, but my parents were gone and wouldn't take me. She'd said, then I'll take you someday. She'd peel oranges for me, placing each segment into my hand, watching me eat. It took you long enough to recognize me, Scarlett said, taking the photo, smiling. I recognized you the moment I saw you at university. But the boy who promised to marry me when we grew up already had a girlfriend then. I pulled Scarlett into my arms, a surge of joy, a sense of something lost and found. I recognize you now. It took me a while, but I see you now. And I'm keeping that promise we made all those years ago. Scarlett, thank you for coming into my life. I will love you forever. It turned out, even a sensitive, withdrawn boy like me could be remembered, could be loved for a lifetime. I didn't know what else to say. I only knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life loving Scarlett, to be with her forever and always.